Hey guys! Yes guys, this is not an illusion. I am actually back after having to take an involuntary break from videos because I might have underestimated my newest project a little. As you've probably seen by the thumbnail already, today I'm going to be trying to build a gigantic mansion for all of my Monster High redesigns. I initially thought of building the school, but I kind of liked the idea even more to build kind of a dormitory where every single ghoul has their own room with their own unique features. And since my dolls are around 16 inches tall, you guys can probably imagine just how big this whole thing is going to be. So the plan is to build a mansion with 7 rooms and a little attachment with 2 more rooms that will be detachable from the main house because otherwise it would just be too big. I also want to build everything on wagons with wheels so that the house can actually be moved, which will probably be necessary. Almost the whole house will be built from Zimopor, which is kind of a hard foam plate that is lighter and cheaper than wood and most other building materials. And additionally, I can use cold welding glue so I can screw and glue it for extra security. Also, you guys might be wondering, why am I doing this to myself and where am I going to store this house? The answer to both questions is I don't know. But I really wanted to make that house, so let's just do it. Okay, so the ground structure of the house is standing now behind me, and I'm still waiting on material for actually building the roof part and the attic and everything. But I decided, since I'm waiting on material, I can already start with the interior of the house. And I want to start by making the floors in the different rooms, starting with the hallway. And for the hallway, we got actual black and white mosaic tiles. I freaking love checkered flooring, and I've seen it a lot in like Victorian houses, so I thought for the hallway this would be the coolest thing to do. And these are actual, you hear it, actual tiles, which makes it even cooler. So let's glue those in, shall we? So after the flooring in the hallway was glued in, the additional material that I ordered finally arrived, which means we can now build the top roof flooring of the house, which we actually want to make detachable because otherwise this house could never leave my studio because it wouldn't fit through any kind of door. So we screwed and glued together the upper part of the house similar to the bottom part of the house until it would look something like a room. And to be able to make the roof, we glued on some pieces that my dad cut an arc into on one side so that the roof we will be touching later on will have this slight bend to the outside. For the roof itself, we use a thin 3mm hard foam board because it's easier to bend, and also cut the window placeholders out with the box cutter. And then we can place the whole thing on top of the already existing house. It's actually really nice we put the house on wagons for movement, but I was a little baffled by just how big this thing is going to be. There's a difference between knowing in theory how big something is gonna be and actually seeing it in front of your own eyes. So with the house base structure done so far, I decided it was time to work on the facade now. I want to give the house a Victorian-inspired weatherboard type of paneling on the outside. And I decided that 3mm hard foam strips was the perfect material for this, and I will just glue them onto the house with a little gap in between. We then had to make the stairs in the front of the house for the entrance area, and it turned out not to be that easy to cut it with a saw, but my dad made it work so that when we assembled 2 pieces of stairs, I could go and glue the actual steps onto them. Last but not least, we put the big top board onto them and also glued the big front piece for the railing to the front of the stairs. Before placing those stairs onto the house, however, I decided to glue some foundation tiling onto the base of the house by using self-adhesive 3D wallpaper. I pieced everything together and afterwards could finally place the stairs in the front of the house. Welcome to heaven. It is very, very bright here. I just got told to sit down. Okay, I think the camera guy fixed the issue and brought us back to Earth. And as you can see, we finished the facade now at this point. We also glued on the foundation with those tiley rocky textures, and we also finished the stairs. So far obviously the fencing and stuff is still missing, but I thought it's probably a good idea at this point to maybe paint the lower part of the house except for the roof black now, so that we can actually see. Why are you coming so close? So that we can actually see how it will look like in black, and maybe also see if there is anything that needs fixing. And we need to paint the facade anyways first before we can put on further ornamentation and attachments. And because I already want to build the stairs for inside and stuff like that, I'm gonna kindly ask my husband to paint the house for me. This is easily the biggest project that I have ever done. So it was crucial that we tried to organize everything as good as possible. And that's where today's sponsor, Milanote, comes into play. You probably already know Milanote, as I used it for my other dollhouse projects before. I also used it for my car-like project, planning out her outfit and facial details. And let me tell you, it has been a lifesaver. Let me show you Milanote in action. Milanote is great for all types of creatives, as they have built-in templates for marketers, designers, writers. And that's basically how I started this project, because I loved this template that I found. It's just perfect for the project. So I created a board and together with Joe sourced image references, wrote notes about details that are super crazy, put together a huge variety of videos that inspired me, like haunted mansion explorations and images. And we also have a checklist to show our progress in the build. One of my personal favorite features of Milanote is how you can add boards inside other boards to keep everything sleek and organized. And the board was just the perfect reference when making patterns, painting, and designing the rooms, so I can make sure to cram as many details into the rooms as possible. The collaboration process has always existed, but it has never been done like this visually and organically. Setting up a board is super easy with all the templates that Milanote offers, so it is really something suitable for every kind of project. So if you're thinking of making your own project, or maybe are already in the process of it, you need Milanote. Make your life so much easier by getting all your references and discussions in one place. Sign up to Milanote now through the link in my description for a completely free account with 0 time limit. And thanks again to Milanote for once again sponsoring one of my videos. And I think we should really continue the build now. To make the shingles for the roof, I decided to cut them in rows from 2mm EVA foam with my laser cutter to save time while gluing them. To glue them, I first used Alleskleber, but I realized that it didn't glue the foam as well and later on switched to hot glue instead. And basically all I have to do now is glue the roof row by row. I thought by cutting the shingles in rows it would go faster, but it still took me extremely long to glue the roofs because of the sheer size of the house. I think in total I needed around 2 days just for gluing the shingles. Joe then added some weathering to the roof of the house as well, and we installed some wooden pillars and corners for the porch of the house, as well as the balcony flooring for the second floor of the building. So the initial house is pretty much done, but there is still the little tower on top missing. It will make the house even higher, but I feel it would be such a cool finishing touch to the whole house and will make it look so cool. At least I hope so. So how about we build that real quick and also add some balcony fencing to the balconies. So the facade of the house is pretty much done now. That still needs some aging that Joe is gonna do. And before we install the actual windows now, because I only installed the actual doors so far, I decided that I wanted to make the inside walls of the house now first, because I did that on the strawberry shortcake house as well, that I made the walls on the inside and outside finished first and then put in the windows because it just made more sense to me. So how about we do that now and put in the windows, and then the whole facade of the house is probably will hopefully be done. For Draculaura's room, I printed this really pretty pink wallpaper that I embedded tiny bits into, and first spread some Mod Podge onto the wall and then carefully added the wallpaper and rubbed it on with a squeegee. I still love that word. Squeegee! It was a little tricky to glue it, but once I got a hang of it, it wasn't so bad. I cut and painted the inside frame for the window with my laser cutter from some MDF board and simply glue it on with some Uhu glue. To give Draculaura's room an even more Victorian feel, I wanted to add some wall paneling to it. For that, I cut out all the shapes with my laser cutter and glue them together first, before painting everything with matte black acrylic paint. When it was dry, I could then go ahead and glue the panels into the room and onto the walls. Of course, all the rooms will need some decorative ceiling trim, so I got some from the hardware store and my dad and I installed it with montage glue, patience and a lot of swearing, because cutting the trim in an angle wasn't as easy as we thought it would be. So now just the flooring of Draculaura's room is missing, and I decided I wanted to give her a herringbone wooden flooring that I'm gonna paint black afterwards. Since this is pretty much self-explanatory though, I think it's time for a little montage. which is essentially one big room together with Draculaura's room because they're roommates, I of course had to go for purple walls, so I got this really pretty nice purple shade mixed in the hardware store and first painted the walls with it. After what felt like 5 layers later, I could then finally add the flooring, which is the same beautiful checkered flooring I added in the hallway. I'm just such a sucker for checkered flooring. Some of you might be asking, what am I actually gonna do with that little tower room of the house? Who is gonna live there, right? Since this is like the coziest room of them all, in my opinion, I decided I wanted to give it to Ghoulia to make her a little nerdy comic book reading corner there. But before we can do that, we of course first need to add wallpaper, flooring, and other stuff. I actually made this wallpaper from a retro pattern, but edited a little so it kind of looks like eyes to fit the ghoulish aspect. And with pretty much everything prepped now, let's get the walls and floor going for this room. I actually found these really pretty iridescent shimmering mosaic tiles and will now be similar to the hallway and Clawdeen's room, just glue them in. My dad was so nice and cut the tiles for me where necessary, so I could go ahead and glue the whole flooring right away. For the walls, I purchased a glittering self-adhesive white wallpaper, and since my dad is a sign maker, I asked for his expertise and help to glue them, and he nailed it. It looks amazing. On the second floor, I will make Lagona's and Cleo's rooms and decided on a baby pink for Lagona's walls, which I still had left over from my strawberry shortcake house, and simply painted the walls with a painting roll. After 2 layers of paint, it looked like this, and I could now continue with the flooring. For that, I decided on shimmering light blue pool tiles to fit Lagona's element, and just like with the other tiles, glue them all in. To give the room a finished look, I also glued some floorboards. It's actually just a decorative ceiling trim that we cut in half so it would fit the scale of the dollhouse. And I actually did that in all of the rooms. Next to Abbey's room is actually gonna be Frankie's room, and I want to make her room mostly black, white, and silver. And I actually found this really cool 3D metallic self-adhesive vinyl, and I thought this would be perfect for the flooring of Frankie's room. I painted the walls silver but kind of forgot to film that, so just wait until later in the video. We also made a silver pillar for the room from a plastic pipe that we covered with silver chrome vinyl. One of the rooms that I was most excited about was actually Cleo's room. I will let you know later when we make the furniture why, but first I decided that I want to give the royal queen some royal flooring, so let's make some marble flooring. We printed the floor on the big inkjet printer of my mom in exchange of me buying her some ink for the printer and then ran it through the laminator from my dad to protect the surface and make it shiny. We then added some double-faced tape on the back of it and glued it onto a 3mm hard foam board sheet. We then just needed to cut off the excess, and before installing it, I will paint Cleo's walls pink as well, but I will use a slightly darker shade than Lagona's pink. It took 2 layers of paint as well, but looked lovely afterwards, so I could then slide in the marble flooring and glue it in place with some cold welding glue. In the end, I also finished the room with some floorboards. The last thing missing for the main house was the stairs, which I already built off cam and decided to build a little toilet into it. So I first glued some wallpaper into the room before adding some white foam board strips to the bottom of the walls, similarly as I did on the strawberry shortcake house. With the wall boards done, Joe was so kind as to paint the stairs black for me, and I also went ahead and laser cut some railing for the stairs that Joe also already painted, so I now just had to glue it to the stairs and finish them off. finish them. Okay, so the walls and the floors of the main house are pretty much done, but the little attachment with the greenhouse and the kitchen and the bathroom is still missing. So for the greenhouse, I already cut some flooring with my laser cutter, and actually Joe volunteered to paint it in a rusty metallic kind of fashion. Joe?
Yeah?
Could you let us know how you did the flooring?
Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy?
After Elisa cut out these pretty forms, I purchased all the paint that was in the sales section in the hardware store and mixed them all together. Once I had this color, I just spread it out everywhere. It's already starting to look like rust, but I think I can do better. I decided to mix in some white to make it considerably more light, so I can use it for highlights. Whenever I'm aging or weathering things, I'm trying to think about how it would occur in nature. For example, I'm adding more highlights from the edges because that's where corrosion would occur more heavily. As the last touch, I decided to add some LCL liquid to really bring home the corroded look. I started with tapping the SpongeBob on very lightly, which later got out of hand and I just started yanking him around, you know, for a more spread out look. And here I decided to use the most underrated tool for crafting: my fingers. All in all, I think it turned out pretty good. That's it for the weather. Back to you, Elisa.
Thanks, Joe. Now back to the greenhouse. With the greenhouse flooring added, the most part of the house interior-wise is done, and I'm already super happy with how everything looks so far. I really like how colorful it is on the inside compared in contrast to the outside. Never judge a book by its cover, huh? Okay, as you can see, we are outside right now because I got an enormous package from Frosty. He again printed some of the stuff for the house for me, and I just want to take you along in unboxing the whole thing. So let's do that. And now with the stuff from Frosty being here and the rooms done so far from the inside, I could finally go on and make the windows. So with all the walls and floors on the inside done, we can now put in the windows. And basically I'm going to make them the same way as I did on the strawberry shortcake house. I made a double window frame and a little window that will still get a window glass, and then we can pop that in and open it towards the inside. So I'm gonna have to do that around 15 times now. And then I will put these frames in and the glasses in, and then on the outside there will be some really pretty ornamentation, but I will show you that during the process. For the tower room, I decided to make a small round window with a skelet as a subtle indicator for the theme of the house. I cut it from wood with my laser cutter and add an acrylic glass to it with some OOAK glue, and then carefully glue the eyes and nose onto the front of it like this. In the end, I added some glass decor vinyl and a black vinyl to hide the wood from the inside, and can then install it in the tower of the mansion. To hide the not so pretty seams of the windows on the inside of the house, I cut more MDF frames that I painted black and simply slapped them on for a neat finish. Now the only thing missing from the actual build is the greenhouse. It's going to be so large that I actually needed to laser cut it in parts, glue those parts together, and then paint all the pieces black from both sides. The makeshift table wasn't making this whole process easier because it was shaking the whole time. Eventually I was done with all the pieces though and could then use some montage glue to start gluing together the greenhouse parts. I should have probably used black montage glue, but I only had white one. Oh well. It also wasn't that easy to actually glue everything because it was very flimsy without the window glasses, but with some help from my dad I could eventually make it work and let it dry overnight. To make the window glasses, I cut out the window grids from black vinyl with a vinyl cutter and then glued them onto the cut window glasses with water. When you use water with a dab of dish soap in it, you can glue such large pieces much easier and can even shift them around a little if you put them on imprecisely first. It's really neat. I then just let it dry for a second and could remove the protective vinyl and have a nice window glass. To glue everything, we used hot glue and partially montage glue for extra hold. The final greenhouse looks so nice and I can't wait to see how it will look like together with the house later on. So the initial house build is pretty much done so far, which means we can finally start building the furniture. This was actually what I was most excited about of this whole project. It was, however, important to me that the rooms are not gonna be looking too tacky and too playset-like, because I actually wanted to put some thought into each and every single Ghoul's room's interior. It wasn't easy to plan so many rooms for so many different styles, but honestly, I had so much fun doing this. This was the most creative thing about the whole build. And how about we start with Abbey's room? I wanted to give her kind of a crystal iridescent icy room inspired by glacier arrow aesthetics. So how about we make her bed first? My hair is wild today, it's raining outside. Okay, so for Abbey, I thought it would be really cool to make a bed that is inspired by her ice bed from a playset that Generation 1 Abbey did have. And I found that you can buy fake ice cubes and these look so cool. So I bought a bunch of them, around like 300 I think. And we're gonna try to build Abbey's bed with those ice cubes and with a polystyrene plate that happens to have the perfect size. I have a leftover from, I think, my strawberry shortcake house. So let's try to build a glass/ice looking Y2K bed. The finished bed turned out better than I would have ever thought, and I really love this iridescent puffer jacket material. Luckily, I still had that laying around because I bought it at one point, but ended up not using it. So to give Abbey some storage possibilities, I actually found this little packaging that I still had laying around from a little Bluetooth speaker that I got like years ago. And the cool thing is it almost looks like a little fridge with perfectly fits Abbey's whole theme. So let's see if we can maybe customize and bedazzle it to fit Abbey's room so that she has a cool and unique little shelf, cupboard, wardrobe thingy. Before we can make Abbey's dresser, I need to remove the plastic glass from the front of it, and because I couldn't get it off, I asked my dad, who just used a screwdriver and blunt force. He also removed the handle, and then the little one was ready to be primed. Luckily, the weather was playing along, so this was a fast deal. When I wanted to paint it silver though, it was raining, so we hung it in the garage, and then my dad assisted me because he definitely has some more experience in painting things. He literally painted one of his first cars with a cheetah print. Absolute legend. And indeed, the finished Schrank turned out perfect. So now I could go ahead and cut a new glass for it from some iridescent acrylic, but also cut one from clear acrylic that I will glue as a backing into the fridge, and then place the iridescent glass on top of it and click it in from the front so I won't need any glue. I went ahead and already 3D printed these horns that are actually scaled up from Abbey's sculpt blue pixie made for my redesign, and now glue them to the gaps of the fridge. Hide the edges with a rhinestone chain because I felt fancy, and then last but not least, paint the horns silver. The finished fridge looks so neat, and it makes so much sense that Abbey has a dresser that is also a fridge. so she can cool her clothes down before putting them on. Also, silver plus iridescent stuff is just so gorgeous to me. I don't know. The last furniture piece that I want to make for Abbey is gonna be an inflatable armchair. Blue Pixie actually sculpted it so that I could 3D print it in 3 parts, and I'm gonna be using some clear resin, and hopefully we'll be able to actually make it look like an inflatable chair in the end. So let's see if we can do that. The next room I want to make is gonna be Clawdeen's room. I actually had such a cool idea for her bed because I want to give her a round bed representing the full moon because, get it, werewolf and stuff. But the perk of it is that it's gonna be convertible into a vanity. To do this, I will first be cutting out a base plate from some more hard foam material. Since I can't cut this with my laser cutter, we used my dad's CNC machine for that, and it worked like a charm. To make the walls around the base plate, I cut some thin MDF board with my laser cutter and cut a so-called living hinge into it, so the piece is going to be bendable, which is perfect because we need it to go around the bed shape. To glue it in place, I simply use hot glue because it holds everything in place very well. I glued 2 bending pieces and 1 straight piece where the bed will be opening later on. And then I take some foam that I had still laying around and glue it around the outside of the bed for some softness and upholstering. The upper part of the bed will have 2 pieces, 1 solid one and 1 that will be able to open. I'm also gluing foam onto those pieces. The second piece almost looks like a crescent moon, which was actually intentionally done. And with everything prepped, I could now go ahead and add the fabric around the bed. Of course, it needed to be a cheetah print fabric. And I luckily still had a bunch of this laying around that I bought around 10 years ago and never properly put to use until now. To glue it onto the foam, I use spray adhesive, and to glue down the edges, I use hot glue. I then add another living hinge piece on the inner part of the crescent moon piece and then use some self-adhesive black velvet for a finishing touch. It's usually used for jewelry boxes, but it worked like a charm here. I also place it on the inside of the bed and then can put the pieces together like this. And I was so happy that it actually worked and fit together. So I could then bond it together forever with some hot glue. For the vanity part, I prepped these little cabinets from some MDF board and painted them purple already. I made some small doors for them as well and added tiny hinges with glue. To hide the hinges, I will be adding 2 frames to the doors. A golden frame on the door and a purple frame on the frame of it. And last but not least, I add a tiny handle that I 3D printed and painted gold. And then I just need to glue the door with the frame onto the front of the little cabinet. With 2 of those cabinets done, I then proceed to glue them to a golden mirror acrylic sheet that I already cut with my laser cutter and simply slap them on with some wood glue. And now the last step is to glue the vanity part into the bed and also add a round mirror to the lid of it. To make the bed look even a little bit nicer, I printed and painted these beads with flat top and bottom parts and glued 5 of them to the bottom of the bed. And with that, the vanity bed is done, and it was one of my first ideas I had for this project, and nothing feels better than something you designed actually working out in the end. I also made Clawdeen a little dresser by simply painting this cute little corner shelf that Frosty 3D printed for me and adding some feet and an acrylic glass to it. The next room I'm about to make is gonna be Cleo's room. As I said before, I was mostly excited about making her room because I want to make her room inspired by 80s Art Deco revival aesthetics. The geometric shapes just fit the Egyptian theme so much, and to be quite honest, this is one of my favorite interior styles of all time. So I first want to make her a really cool vanity. For that, I cut several pieces from wood already and assembled the front and back piece of the vanity first and then attached the side pieces. Okay, so I put this all together and I already primed and sanded this like a million times so that we can now spray paint it pastel teal. And I also made the mirror part. So let's hope it will look nice together and spray paint it now. To make a fitting stool for the vanity, I'm taking this leftover cardboard tube that I found in the paper trash and first glue some foam board around it with hot glue. Afterwards, I then take this really cool fabric that I cut off a thrifted blouse and simply glue it around the padded stool similarly to Clawdeen's bed. For the bottom of the stool, I glued together 2 MDF circles and glued them onto the bottom like this. And for the top part of the stool, I 3D printed this dome shape I modeled and glued some light golden fabric around it. With the top of the stool all done, I then just need to hot glue the lid onto the bottom piece and have a beautiful retro stool that fits so nicely with the vanity. The finished vanity turned out better than I could have ever imagined, and I low-key wish I had one like this for my actual apartment. Cleo's bed is actually gonna be a pretty big challenge because I want to make her a 4-poster bed with actual pillars. I have no idea if I can actually make this work, but I guess I'll just try and see where the process is gonna take me. It is so cool that the whole thing actually worked out in the end and the bed looks so cool. I really love the fabric for the bed sheets too. It was actually some leftover fabric that I still have a bunch of from my failed fashion brand that I had before Moonlight Jewel. Oops. For Cleo's dresser, I actually found this little jewelry box on a flea market and decided to just give it a paint job. Of course, I first need to disassemble the handles on the drawers and then paint the whole thing in a beautiful cream color. I then just screw the handles back and have a cute little dresser that will now fit seamlessly into Cleo's room. I also made Cleo a flower pot from an old Pringles can that I had in my studio because, first of all, I'm a snacker and second of all, I never throw away things. So I simply spray painted it gold, then put some floral foam into it, add some palm tree-like fake plants and fill up the whole thing with tiny rocks. And last but not least, I asked Blue Pixie if she could make a mural for Cleo, which she absolutely nailed doing, by the way. And I 3D printed it in filament, then primed and sanded it, and last but not least gave it a golden spray paint finish, and it's gonna look so good in the room afterwards, I feel. Alright, 3 rooms done, a lot more to go. So how about we finally make Draculaura's room? Her room will definitely be more Victorian inspired and mostly in black and pink. And the only valid bed for her is, of course, a coffin, right? I actually found a really cool file for a laser cut coffin on Etsy, and for the sake of this project, scaled it up and cut it with my laser cutter, so we now just have to assemble and paint it. I'm so happy how the finished coffin looks. I know a mirror in the front doesn't really make much sense for a vampire, but hey, it's the thought that counts, right? Also, the fact that it opens is so cool. I love it. I also found files for a chair and a table with spider webs on Etsy, and I knew I wanted to make them for Draculaura. So I basically just cut out all the pieces from wood and just have to assemble them accordingly, which was luckily very self-explanatory. When everything was put together, I then just needed to paint both pieces black and add an acrylic glass plate to the table. A very simple but super cute chair and table combo that will look so cute in her room. For Draculaura's room, I still want to make a little dresser so she can actually have some accessories standing on top. And obviously she needs a little dresser to store her clothes. And I happened to find this little jewelry box in a thrift store, and the lady told me it's €2, so obviously I had to grab it. But it doesn't really fit Draculaura, so now we have to make it fit her room. So how about we flip it? Oops. Honestly, I can't believe this is the same dresser that was super colorful and looked nothing like this just a couple hours ago. And this little makeover only cost a couple hours of work rather than a whole day trying to build something like this from scratch. And I'm really happy with the result. And I only spent $2 on that little dresser because everything else I already had in my studio. For Frankie's room, I actually want to build my own version of her convertible bed/mirror from her Generation 1 playset. I really liked the idea and wanted to try if I can make it work for my doll. So after planning everything, I cut a bunch of pieces from wood with my laser cutter and then first assembled the mirror and the bed box. On the mirror side, I added a frame in which I will be gluing a mirror later as well. For the stand of the bed, I glued together 2 octagon frames to make the material a little thicker and let that dry. The headboard will actually be a little shelf, and I need to glue the top piece of it with cardboard because this was the easiest way. I also glued together the side pieces for the stand and now attached them to the octagon pieces. I did a little dance before gluing the footboard onto the bed box. Afterwards, I paint the mirror front white and the rest of the bed black, attach some plexiglass doors with clear hinges to the little headboard shelf, and also attach that to the bed. I then add black stripes to the mirror side, and when that is done, I just need to cut out the mirror piece with my laser cutter and glue it into the mirror frame with double-faced tape. I went ahead and added a threaded rod with handles to the bed box and then glued the same material I used for Frankie's flooring onto the bed side. The final step was to paint the stand for the bed silver, hook the bed into the stand, and with that, Frankie's bed is done. It turned out so cool, but it is enormous. Frankie is one of the tallest ghouls that I made, and the bed is also hovering a little so it can rotate, and it almost touches the ceiling of her room, but I just love how it looks like. Okay, so I wanted to give Frankie obviously a dresser as well, and I happened to find this tea box that I used to use for my glitters before I relocated them, and now I'm not using this anymore, but I obviously still have it because I'm a hoarder. So I thought, why not paint the inside and the frame of it black, because this is actually a perfect little schrank for the dollhouse. So how about we do that? I also made Frankie a dresser by painting one of the cabinets that Frosty printed for me black and simply adding some 3D printed and silver painted handles to it. And I found a really cute chair in a dollar store and want to give that chair a round pillow, so I'm first sewing together a fabric strip, then adding it to a circle and sewing it on finished sides in, and then simply putting in some foam I glued onto a cardboard piece and then just gluing down the fabric onto the bottom of the cardboard piece. Looks really cute and looks so cute on the little chair. Ghoulia's room is next, and as I said before, she will have the attic room. And to make it super cozy, I want the room almost entirely to be a bed where she can just read, draw, and chill out. And I built the bed frame from MDF boards already so that it will fit snugly exactly into the room. And now I just have to make some badges for her. And since I couldn't find a fitting fabric anywhere in my stash or online, I guess I just have to make it myself with some fabric vinyl.
And I'm wondering.
Laguna's bed just looks so cozy and comfortable that I would love to just lay down in it immediately myself. I cannot wait to put it into her room, but first she also needs a bookshelf. I made the files for that myself, cut it from some wood, assembled everything with glue, and then added a thin MDF board framing so that the whole shelf will fit perfectly snug into the little room underneath the round window. I then first wanted to stain it, but because I was too messy with the glue, the stain didn't want to stain everywhere. So I ended up painting the whole thing in a super dark brown instead. But of course we need some books to go into the shelf as well, right? So I purchased some miniature book cover files on Etsy, printed them out a little bit bigger, cut and folded them, and now need to glue some hard foam board sheets into each book. My dad was so kind and cut these for me, so the gluing process was rather quick. In the end, I also put some more accessories into the shelf and it looks just so cool and really like an actual bookshelf. I'm just super happy how it turned out. How about we make an aquatic room next? I actually have some really cool ideas for Laguna's room, and I definitely wanted to make it Y2K inspired because the doll is also Gyaru inspired and those two styles just go hand in hand together. To give her a vanity, I will actually be using this vase I thrifted for $2. I'm heating up some warbler-like material and inserting it into the opening of the vase to create kind of a stand. To make it seamless, I will be using some white montage glue to fill up any gaps and wait for it to dry. Afterwards, it looks something like this, so I can now proceed and paint the stand white. For even more stability, I added some UV resin, cured the whole thing, and in the end decided to bedazzle the stand with some half-beat pearls. It looks incredibly pretty afterwards, so the only thing left to do is adding the table plate that I cut from a white acrylic sheet and simply slap it on with Uhu glue. I also made Laguna's little stool by first gluing a fabric piece around another dome I printed, then adding a little plate on the bottom of it, and then using this thrifted candle holder that kind of looks like a jellyfish and attaching it to the seat of the stool. A vanity isn't complete without a mirror, so I wanted to make one with beauty lights. I first built a little box from some wood that I laser cut, painted the whole thing pink, and then added these tiny LED lights that I happened to have laying around. I already cut some slits into the base plate and just have to push them in before adding the mirror acrylic plate and gluing it in place. The cool thing is that you can turn off and on each light by itself, which is super cool, I think. With this, the vanity combo for Laguna is done, and I'm happy I could use these thrifted items to make something really cool and unique looking. Okay, so for Laguna's bed, I already was so free and 3D printed this gigantic pool because I want her bed to be a cool pool. And now we are just going to need to spray paint the inside in a cool cyan baby blue, so it will look like she's hopefully actually sleeping in water later on. Let's hope we can make this work. Final bed is so cool, especially because it can just light up and it really looks like a pool and makes me super excited for summer. Laguna of course needs some pillows, but they kind of need to be waterproof, so I wanted to make some vinyl pillows that are filled with water. For that I cut some PVC material into shape and then take a folded piece of baking paper and fuse the two pieces together alongside the edges with a hair iron. I just leave a small gap open in the end and then take a syringe and fill it with purified water. Afterwards I just have to seal off the final piece and have a super cute water-filled pillow. Alright guys, we have arrived at making the final ghoul room, which is going to be Venus's room. Of course, because she's a plant, she will live in the greenhouse, and I do have some really cool ideas for her as well. Starting with her bed. Okay, so I want to make Venus's bed a convertible couch so that at daytime it will be a couch and at nighttime she can convert it into a bed. And conveniently and very fitting for the thrift queen, I found this doll couch on a flea market for, I think it was like $5. It is a little bit broken, as you can see, but that doesn't matter because I want to reupholster it and refurbish it to make it fit Venus's cyberpunkish aesthetics. And I want to use this fabric that I have left over from my life-size Barbie doll, actually. And I'm also gonna be using some other materials that I have all here, so this will be super sustainable, actually. And I hope I can take it apart relatively okay without breaking more than what is broken already. So yeah, let's try our luck. Actually incredibly stoked by how freaking amazing this couch turned out, because I do not have a lot of experience in upholstering, but it looks so comfortable. I really love upcycling things and making old things shine in a new light. I did want to make Venus a little foldable table though, where she can sew on, so I cut some pieces from transparent acrylic sheets and glued the leg pieces onto a table plate with little hinges. I also added some little noopsies to the legs so that I can insert a second acrylic plate underneath the table plate, and also added some crossbars to the end of the legs. The final table holds this little 3D printed sewing machine well and looks super cute, but can be stored away if Venus decides to convert her couch into a bed. In the end, I also printed a mannequin for Venus that I actually yoked through my kitchen right away. And I also made her a stool in a similar fashion to Cleo's stool. And with this, all the ghoul rooms are done. I never thought I would come to this point. But I still really quickly need to finish the kitchen and the bathroom so that they can prep some food or take a bath. So let's do that real quick with a final little montage, and with that finish my by far biggest project ever. Okay guys, the house, the furniture and everything is finally done. We added a bunch more decoration and accessories off cam that we wanted to keep for the reveal. So I guess this project is finally coming to an end and I won't keep you guys waiting any longer. So it is presentation time. And here is my biggest project ever. This project took so much longer than initially anticipated, but I think it turned out extremely cool and I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of video. The next video is going to be a redesign again, but not from Monster High, but from another franchise. So I hope you're looking forward to that. Alright, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment, subscribe and share it with all of your friends. And until then, see you in the next one. Bye!